the one that I know that stuck out to me was the whole like competitions for losers.
Yeah, the big thing that he talks about is the ideology of competition. And the way that he views competition is that competition shouldn't be the goal. Yeah, well, he says it shouldn't be the goal of an entrepreneur, and you should avoid it, and you should be trying to create a monopoly.
Right.
And yeah, it's like for losers in that respect, because ultimately it's like an infighting when you have if you have a diverse enough perspective and you have the right information and you study, you should be able to find something on your own island in your own blue ocean, where you don't have to go and fight over scraps, but you can create something, get really, really good at it, and be the best and deliver that in a market.
And then if you do expand from that stronghold, instead of trying to say, oh yeah, I'm just a generalist in all these areas.
Yeah, and having like a flat line over like all of your output. And so that is a big thing. And I think it's not something that people like to hear, and I think that is probably a contrarian view in the sense that he's saying monopolies are a good thing.
Well, I see, for me, it's contrarian to maybe the capitalistic view, but if you
Hey.
All right.
Welcome back to another Founders Drive.
We are back in the car.
Yes.
Another week.
Yes. Here.
A little bit different of a venue, but hey.
I know, man.
We're going to continue this going because we have negative 20 or 30
oh my God,
degree weather here in Michigan.
It's freezing over here.
It sucks.
It's the Arctic blast, the polar vortex. The Midwest, man. I wish I could just be on a beach right now. But this is where character's made. This is what they don't talk about.
This is stuff that California doesn't have.
I know. We have seasons. Right? They're like, forget your seasons. We got beaches, and we got sun, and we got beautiful weather.
Yeah.
But yes, what's new in Constance, Jake?
Constance, man. We are making some cool updates. Oops.
Yes.
We are basically allowing you to look at all the analytics that your page is generating, and so I'm really excited about that. We have it in the test environment right now, but it'll go out by the time you guys see this.
Yes.
And so I'm really excited about that, just in terms of getting us up to par with what you would expect from a mini website or a link aggregator.
And it's like what we expect too. I love how we can talk a little bit about the development process and what that says about the state of technology in the Founders Drive. And I think that that's applicable to a lot of people, even if you're not directly a software engineer or you're not directly technical, because I think a lot of the stuff is becoming more accessible.
100%.
But yeah, like I'm really, really excited about the analytics feature because it just it gives you an insight onto your traffic, how people are coming to you or landing on your page. And we're just going to continue to make it more and more robust. But also keep it digestible and easy to use, which I think is a really important thing. In my mind, the thing that I'm noticing is that there are so many products out there.
Yeah.
And I tend to favor the ones that are easy to use, but are also extremely powerful in what they can accomplish and what they can do. And so that's what we're striving to make Constance for the average entrepreneur, the new entrepreneur, the solopreneur, the person who wants to explore their passion, the person who wants to get experience but might not have that job. And so that's what we're making it for, and I love the way that it's developing. So check it out. Check it out.
And we'll talk a little bit more about Constance in this episode.
Yeah. We'll have to give a code for the Founders Drive listeners.
Yeah, we will.
Soon. So that maybe that's something that comes out in the future. So continue to listen, subscribe, and you'll benefit.
Yeah,
take care of you.
I love that.
Yeah. So yes, let's get into the founder for today.
The founder today, or this week, the theme of this episode, it's a little bit. It's someone who's alive right now. Someone who is impacting the outcome. They are shaping the way that politics and technology is used in the world today.
Yeah.
And they're not even that old.
Yeah. And I think another thing too is that with this founder, again, people have already seen the thumbnail, but with this founder, it's extremely interesting because his belief system is contrarian.
Yes.
He's made a huge impact in modern day technology and modern day politics and modern day civilization. And looking at his investments, it's going to continue to play a significant role in the coming future.
Yeah.
Of course, it's Peter Thiel.
Peter Thiel.
Peter Thiel. And where do we even start? Let's start with, I guess, his timeline.
We might as well, yeah.
Born in 1967.
Yep, on October 11th in Frankfurt, Germany.
Frankfurt, Germany.
So.
Yes, and he looks every bit German. He moved to America pretty young, but then ended up moving around the world.
Moved around the world first and then to America. I know they had a stint in South Africa for a little bit. I think his dad was some kind of mining expert. And so they had some, I think it was a uranium mine that he got to experience at a very young age due to his dad's work. Eventually, they did end up in the United States pursuing higher education, which I think a lot of people in the 60s, 70s, and 80s really wanted their kids to come to the U.S. for that education. I know that he started it at Stanford as like the first major milestone, I would say, in that higher education journey. Stanford, he got a degree.
There's a couple things too that I think is worth looking at in just his
childhood
arc. Yeah, because so he first moved to Ohio at 1, and then they bounced to
that's true, actually.
They bounced to South Africa, apartheid South Africa.
Yeah, that was with the mining, right?
Yeah. And then he also then they moved to Namibia, which is like Southwest Africa.
Okay.
And I believe that there was like a Nazi concentration there. So I don't know. It's not that he particularly exemplifies that, but I think that it's worth noting in terms of looking at his just like the area that he was brought up in. The South Africa connection, I think there's also a connection to Elon Musk there, although not directly. They share kind of like an overlap in their upbringing in terms of where they were located geographically, and with David Sachs. And these are all people that were part of the PayPal Mafia.
That's
David
true.
Sachs was there just when he was a kid and grew up in America.
Same with Elon.
Yeah, but there's there's just like, oh, we're from the same country, and when you immigrate to somewhere, anybody who has any type of shared background, there's some type of connection there, whether it's good or bad.
That's interesting. Yeah, calling out the fact that Elon is from there and David Sachs is from there.
Yeah,
I guess that is a good call out.
And it's like I don't necessarily know what the how that
overlap
manifests.
is.
But there's something there, especially when you look at how successful that they've all been in business and in technology and the way that they look about things. But yeah, so he kind of shuttled around Africa, shuttled around the world. He never really settled in one school, and he talks about how like he didn't really like the uniformity of schools because he was always moving around, and I think he was in like 7 to 10 different elementary schools.
Oh wow.
But then yes, he did settle in America in California with his family, and that's where he started to kind of.
Is that where? Okay, because I know the first higher education, I guess, school that I saw was Stanford, which is a pretty prestigious school.
Yeah.
But I also know that I don't think he was very sociable in these schools. I mean, very smart person. And so I know he actually hit like the honor roll or whatever you call that.
Like a valedictorian.
Yeah, right. And so excelled in academics. But I also think I don't know how many friends he was able to make in Stanford.
Yeah.
The one thing I do know is calling back to David Sachs, him and David actually wrote a book in their freshman year called The Diversity Myth.
Yes.
And that's something that has been in the, I don't know, it's been out there for a while.
Yeah,
it's been debated quite a bit.
Yeah, I haven't read it, but I've heard both ends of the spectrum. One where he has a lot of things that are not like that he doesn't even back, beliefs that he doesn't even back, specifically around rape culture and like
things have changed since
false accusations, stuff like that he's walked back himself. But then he also had things in there which I do think are not conventional ideas, but there is some accuracy in the sense that if you just have a lot of people that look different but they all share the same idea, then in calling that diversity, that's not really diversity. I think you need to have a diverse set of backgrounds and circumstances, but you also have to have a diverse set of opinions, a diverse set of thoughts, and thinking that just because people look different that they're going to bring a different set of
values and stuff,
beliefs. That's not all. You need both. And 100%. I think a lot of times people devolve into like either this or that, but both is a good word in this circumstance, in terms of bringing diversity of opinion, diversity of thought, and backgrounds experience.
To me, and I didn't read the whole book. I did spark note a couple of the chapters, but like to me, it was a good example of how Peter Thiel was influenced at Stanford from Rene Girard, one of his professors, and also one of the first times you can see Peter very publicly state some of his what you might consider at the time contrarian views. And he's still labeled as that. I'm not sure if I buy that 100%, but for the majority of people, you'd say, okay, that's a contrarian view, and to write a book about it and to be very public about that, I think starts that track record that we're going to see very much appear in throughout his life.
He calls himself a contrarian a lot.
It's interesting. One of those things in the book, in terms of the diversity thing that you touched on, was the fact that his idea was that kind of diversity is anti-Western. And it's actually taking away from these Western ideals and stuff. And I think that's inherently true, right? Because if you're diverse and you are taking ideas from other cultures and countries and places, it can't be pro-Western, because if it's pro-Western, you wouldn't have diversity, right? So I think just by the definition of it, he is correct, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I think in the book he was kind of positing it as, multiculturalism is a bad thing because it doesn't keep these things in line. Whereas, I don't know if it's not really a bad thing. It's just kind of what happens when you do have true diversity.
I see. It's like the way that they framed it was a bad thing, but it's also...
I think his definition is correct. Gotcha. But I don't see it as contrarian because it's just the definition of what's happening. I think a lot of people will call him contrarian because he's willing to say, this is what's happening, and call it out.
I see.
And just be that person in the room who's like, everyone else thinks this, I think this. And it's not about being contrarian for the sake of it. It's about being right.
I see.
He's one of those people I think that think, okay, I'm going to think whatever it is because I think this is the right way, not because this is what the herd is thinking or what, conventional wisdom might say I should think.
I see. I also noted that when he was at Stanford, he started the Stanford Review, which was a libertarian, right-wing, paper.
Yes.
And the reason why I bring that up is because the comment on him starting that I read it from said that he developed his passion for taking public stances and using words to evoke people and get attention on things that he cares about, and to recruit people using his words and the way that he frames things. And so I think he's very intentional about the way that he says things. And I think it's interesting to see where that started and how it plays a role into how he takes his stances today and how he chooses what he backs and supports today.
Oh, 100%. And I touched on Rene Girard. Did you look at all about...
I did. I was actually that's the next thing I was about to look at.
That's something that's very interesting to me, just in terms of that mentality. I feel like Peter just completely took and held on to throughout.
It's a big influence. So I'm going to read... I have the wiki entry up right now.
Perfect.
But he was... Rene Girard is the founder or the creator, author of memetic theory.
Yes.
The memetic theory of desire. And that's an explanation for human behavior in relation to culture. It originated with the French historian and literary critic Rene Girard. The name of the theory derives from the philosophical concept of mimesis, which carries a wide range of meanings. In memetic theory, mimesis refers to human desire, which Girard thought was not linear, but the product of a memetic process in which people imitate models who endow objects with value.
Yes.
Girard called this phenomenon memetic desire and describes memetic desire as a foundation of his. I mean, that's just repeating itself over and over.
It's a mime.
Jesus Christ.
It's a mime,
right?
You know, it's really like, I want what my neighbor has because the community or the society has deemed that whatever he has is valuable.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit keeping up with the Joneses. It's a little bit of a herd mentality, right? Because nobody is like individualistically saying, okay, I'm going to have this.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, oh, my neighbor has it, I want it.
Yeah. So here's an entry, and that was like a good overview of what it is. It goes, man is the creature who does not know what to desire, and he turns to others in order to make up his mind. We desire what others desire because we imitate their desires.
Right.
It's very, very, I mean, that's a whole podcast in and of itself. But looking at that as the root of, or a big influence on Peter Thiel.
The influence is huge.
I mean, so like, and then, so keeping that in mind when we're talking about the rest of these things, I think is really important because it says a lot about how he views the world.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, that's interesting that stuck out to you too. I saw that. I was like, oh no, we need to go in there. It's crazy. Now I kind of want to take a little quick detour. It goes, memetic theory has two main parts: the desire itself and the resulting scapegoating. Girard's idea proposes that all desire is merely an imitation of another person's desire. And they go, subject and model thus form a rivalry, which eventually leads to the scapegoat mechanism.
That's one of my favorite things. Is it's happened so many times in the country, right, where you have a scapegoat or a witch hunt, and you go after that, you know, everyone kind of rallies together to go after this one person, this one thing, or this one entity. The problem here is that when everybody understands that it's a scapegoat game, nobody wants to play. But if you don't realize you're all chasing the scapegoat, then everyone's up in arms. It's one of these things that, it kind of like, if you knew how the trick was done, the magic is no longer magic.
Yeah.
It's one of those that it's very interesting how it plays out, but yeah, it's all stemming from this Rene Girard influence on Peter Thiel that, like I said, will shape the way that he acts in the next upcoming years here.
Yeah.
Right after this 92, 94 period of his life.
Yeah, like how he makes the decisions he makes. But going back to that, so Stanford, he met David Sachs, who they end up becoming business partners. And starting
PayPal was the company.
PayPal. But before that, he had was that Confinity that came before that?
It was Confinity as a investment firm, I believe.
That's right. That was after
That was in 2004.
After the PayPal.
But before then, he actually, the PayPal stuff was online payments. And so I believe that was in 96 or 98.
Yes.
Somewhere around there, he started
about that. 96.
Yep. He started online payments. The first kind of its kind to do electronic payments through over the web. The web was becoming a really big thing in that era. And so they kind of rode that wave of, how do you get somebody to pay you online without having to, be in person?
Yes. Okay, so and to fill in a little bit of some gaps there. So he got his Juris Doctorate.
That is, you're right. He actually, did he actually pass the bar?
I don't know.
I don't know if he actually passed the bar.
Yeah.
I don't know if he actually used it as a lawyer, but I know he worked in a couple law offices.
Yeah, and so and then he worked as a securities lawyer in New York, and then he left the law firm in under a year. He then took a job as a derivatives trader in currency options at Credit Suisse in 1993, while working as a speechwriter for former United States Secretary of Education William Bennett. Thiel returned to California in 1996. Upon returning to the Bay Area, Thiel capitalized on the dot-com boom. With financial support from friends and family, he raised $1 million towards the establishment of Thiel Capital Management and embarked on his venture capital career. Early on, he experienced a setback after investing $100,000 in a friend. And then it says that they ended up, after doing that, he ended up getting into a cryptography-related company idea, which became their first venture called FieldLink, later renamed Confinity in 1998. And then it talks about how FieldLink, he initially provided the first $100,000 for that. And in February 1999, they raised $500,000 from friends and family. By the middle of 1999, they raised $4.5 million from Nokia Ventures. And that's when they went and unveiled PayPal in 1999.
So he's got a lot of rich friends and family.
Yeah,
that's like $2 million of friends and family.
Yeah, I'm just noticing how a lot of these people are very, very good at raising money. We talked about
Yeah.
Rockefeller last time and how he was the great borrower, and he was very comfortable borrowing money. Came from his,
True.
and I think a lot of that came from his accounting background, knowing how money moves, how it operates, what he can get away with, what he can't get away with, when he needs to pay things back, so that way he's not losing. And it seems like Thiel is one of those people. Elon Musk, of course, is very good at raising money, so it's a good thing to understand, I think, as a founder, is knowing how to do that. But another thing that I see is that they first tap on their
Friends and
immediate
family,
circles,
yeah.
and then they go and expand beyond that, which I think is also a key thing to remember in how we look at how they look at companies, because he even talks about how it's a red flag to see an entrepreneur who's trying to get 1% of $1 trillion market. He says, dominate your small markets first,
Yes.
and then expand beyond that and move into adjacent markets.
Right.
So I think there's a through line in that ideology.
Yeah, I think that mentality that he'll get to in terms of that from 0 to 1, I think is shaped through the small stint he had in those being a lawyer, a speechwriter, and a investment banker or a trader, and then obviously starting PayPal. Like that, I feel like shows a really clear journey of like, okay, this makes sense. We're gonna start from a stronghold of dominating a market and then expand, and then go into all those other cool things he talks about in 0 to 1. But in PayPal, I believe PayPal started as cryptography.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like that was at the time a really clear next step for him because he already had that cryptography and that fund. But PayPal didn't just stop there.
Yeah. So they realized that they with Confinity, and I'm just kind of going through the wiki stuff, and we'll add some more stuff in later, but with Confinity, Thiel realized they could develop software to bridge a gap in making online payments. Although the use of credit cards was expanding, automated teller machine networks provided consumers with more payment options, and not all merchants had the necessary hardware to accept credit cards. And so they ended up creating PayPal, and they had a couple different things that they were doing within their ecosystem. But what they ultimately ended up happening was they were competing with Elon Musk's X.com at the time. And he talks a little bit about this in his book 0 to 1, and it's noted history, but they were going back and forth, and they realized that they were just hurting each other by competing against each other. They were driving their prices down, their rates down. They were doing things where they were buying like customers just to get ahead of one another.
It was detrimental to the progress.
Right. So they both sat down together and said, hey, we would be better if we merged companies. PayPal or Confinity acquired X. Peter Thiel was the CEO at the time at first, or was it Elon?
Elon was first.
Elon was the first CEO.
Not for very long.
And then he got ousted.
On a honeymoon. On his honeymoon, the PayPal board of directors voted to replace him, or to change the name back to PayPal, because they kept it with X.
Okay.
They reverted it back to PayPal while he was on his honeymoon, and then I believe removed him and installed Peter there, which obviously isn't like, I don't know, a very nice thing to do. We're in business though, and so not everyone's nice. Something to note here that we did talk about in the Elon episode. It was when this happened to Elon, he could have walked away, fuming and just pissed off, but he ended up just like keeping on good terms with everybody there, and which paid dividends for him later in his career. But a really sticky situation where you're on vacation and the entire team is like, yo, you're not the guy anymore.
You come back. He remained the largest shareholder.
Right.
But yeah, of course, like the backstabbing, I think is not something that anybody, wants or wishes.
Yeah, it's also because it leaves you with a bad taste in your mouth for sure, in terms of like, I don't really want to work with these people anymore.
I know, right?
But he came back and they continued. I think this is also the time where you start to see that PayPal Mafia start to build out. People like Reid Hoffman, he was instrumental in helping PayPal secure payment lines with the big credit card companies, Visa, MasterCard, Intuit. And then some of these other people that you'll notice in the PayPal Mafia also joined, the people who, built YouTube. There was one other company that came out of there that was it was Dropbox maybe. One of the companies that was huge that came out. Yelp was one of them. So, yeah, this was in the early 2000s when PayPal was really starting to get big. And I believe that they had some kind of customer acquisition strategy where they would say, you don't need to be a customer to send money, but you need to be a customer to receive money. So you would be able to pay somebody, but they wouldn't be able to collect it until they made an account. As a way to say, like, no, I paid you already. You just have to go make an account and get your money out of there.
So they kind of inserted themselves in between that transaction to grow the user base, which, it's a good way of building a base. And it's interesting to think about that in terms of growing a software platform now.
Exactly.
But yeah, there's a lot here, and this is kind of like still in the timeline. Skipping ahead a little bit, he ended up after getting his payout there, he ended up walking away with $55 million. He had a 3.7% stake in PayPal when they sold to eBay.
Yes, which is funny because Elon had a bigger stake.
Yeah, the 11.6.
It was like three times as much.
Yeah,
got paid out 3 times as much. But yeah.
And he started Founders Fund. He had an initial investment for 10.2% in Facebook. First
outside investor.
Yes.
That's his one claim to fame as well as all the other stuff.
Yeah.
First outside investor in Facebook for 10.2%. That's insane.
He started PayPal, or not PayPal, Palantir after that.
Yep.
And he has a lot of funds. That's one thing that I noticed in doing some digging on him, is how many different investment funds that he has. And it started to change the way that I look at some of these, like the way that a lot of these people organize their business and the way that they organize how they invest in their investment approach.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It's like, we think of these funds as these institutions when you hear them, but a lot of it is just, hey, this is where I'm parking my money, and then this is where I'm allocating it.
Yeah.
And so, not that wasn't clear before, it's just become more real to me in terms of the
optionality that you have.
Optionalities, but like the actions that they did and why they do that.
Yes.
And there's a lot of infrastructure that you can take advantage of by just saying, I want to do this, and I'm going to set up these funds, and I'm going to have this fund for this purpose and this fund for this purpose. Like that's a big thing. But yeah, that's a really, there's a lot going on there, and we're not going to touch on a lot of the things here.
Yeah, this is like 2005-ish that we're at.
Yep. So, Founders Fund is where there's a lot of software investments. LinkedIn, Airbnb, Spotify, SpaceX, not necessarily, but Stripe. There's a lot of
great investments, honestly.
Yeah, investments in that. From that angle, he has Valor Ventures, General Matter, Thiel Capital, Mithro Capital, but 1517 Fund, America's Frontier Fund, Rivada Space Networks, that's not another fund there. What is that? Snow Ventures.
Wow. Does it give you a total number?
Crescendo Equity Partners, Elevate, Promonos Capital, and honestly, the list goes on. So it lets me know that they're thinking about it differently. You look at how it might be in the Midwest or outside of Silicon Valley, and it feels like, okay, this is the one in the only. Like, this is the I was gonna say this is the Precious, but he's a big Tolkien fan, and I think one of their funds is called the Precious.
Is it really?
They nicknamed it the Precious.
That's funny.
But yeah, so that's kind of like the landscape right now. The thing that I'm really interested in, where I spent most of my time looking into them, was the 0 to 1 book.
Yeah, we can definitely spend some time there for sure.
Yeah. What about you? What have you been?
I do want to say, just like from the 2005 aspect onwards, Peter has been extremely active in the political realm, funding a lot of campaigns, and not only in like direct politics, but also indirect politics. He was actually, and you guys may or may not know this, was the financier behind Hulk Hogan's lawsuit of Gawker Media.
Yeah.
Most people saw that lawsuit. For anyone who doesn't know, Hulk Hogan had a sex tape leak from this company called Gawker Media. Hulk Hogan didn't like that, sued him, and basically said, like, you shouldn't have done that without my consent, blah, blah, blah. And Gawker had the idea that, well, Hulk Hogan's only one person, and we're a giant company. We're worth hundreds of millions of dollars. We'll just keep this lawsuit going on forever and bleed him dry. What happened with Peter was a couple years before this had happened, Gawker had released a story on Peter, sharing some of his personal details that probably didn't want shared, you know? And so Peter secretly reached out to Hulk Hogan's legal team and said, hey, don't tell anybody, but we'll back you. We'll pay all the the lawyer fees so you can fight this case. And it didn't come out until Gawker was actually bankrupted by the court case. And I think that's interesting just because it's a strategic move to get back at somebody that I know that he wasn't on good terms with.
Well, they outed him as gay.
That was that was what Gawker had done to Peter a couple years before this. And so, yeah, I mean, it's like, don't piss off billionaires that are going to come after you because, you know, you think that you're some kind of evangelist journalist and you're, you know, it's interesting how that kind of strategy where he didn't, you know, blow up at the time and say a bunch of things. He was like, no, I'm just going to quietly wait till I can get my move back and then just make sure that move is strong enough to take over your whole company.
Yeah, I think it says a lot about his mindset too.
Oh,
which,
yeah.
To that point is he's a strategy guy.
Exactly.
He thinks in strategy.
The long term too.
Yeah, and that's a case in point right there. It's okay, you did that to me and you felt like you could just do that and run away with it. And he bided his time.
Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna get you back. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So he fought the war. He lost the battle, and then he fought the war. And that's something to take note of. Because I think that's a very real. Those are very real personalities that are in the business world, and in the media world, and all of them. Another thing too is he's also he started the Stanford Review when he was in college, so I think that he's also just very aware of how media can go a little bit further than especially like tabloid media can go a little bit further and can be a little bit aggressive when it's not necessary. So, you know, that's one of those ones where, you know, I'm not mad about it.
No, not at all. I think it's also like not his only political contribution. Like he's really big behind JD Vance too. Huge behind JD Vance.
Yeah. I don't know the particulars of like how. I know that he backed him, and I know that JD Vance and him have a relationship that go back. I'm not as aware of the particulars there, but again, that's more in the political space. I think the Gawker thing, and when I look at that, I'm like, that's personal business. If you're kind of outing my personal life and you think that you're gonna do that without without any type of consequence, I'm like, okay, good luck. We'll wait a little bit, and it might not be right now. It might not be 2 years from now. But I think that the personal stuff is a little bit different than the political contributions and backings.
It's interesting how much separation is there really between the personal and the political ideals. You know, like how much separation is. I know from the JD Vance side, the biggest thing to note was that it was the largest contribution ever for that kind of race. And so I don't know the particulars and how he helped, but I know like the contribution in terms of monetarily was very big. Yeah, it's very interesting. I think we talked a little bit about how he co-founded Palantir. Most people don't know what Palantir is or how it's supposed to help or hurt the ecosystem of America. It's something that I guess kind of goes into this Gawker and like U.S. politics story. Where Palantir is essentially a giant AI company built to detect threats.
Well, they basically aggregate a ton of data. And they integrate a lot of data and analytics, and they put this data in their platforms. They make their platforms for government agencies, defense contracts, and they have I think they have a civilian version of it, but they spend a lot of money in the defense space, and a lot of their money comes from the defense contracts that they have out there.
Yeah, it's really just identifying threats and then giving that information to the people in power to be able to decide what to do. I know the motivation for that company, obviously it's called Palantir, which is from the Tolkien universe, as a looking glass, but the motivation, I believe, was the September 11th attacks, which was is there a way for a company, a private company, to get early warning signals of an attack like this without breaking, civil liberties?
Right.
Can I collect enough information and do enough machine learning on this data to pick up a pattern where I can give you advanced warning without breaking your civil liberties? Was the idea. I don't know how much civil liberties they broke it or not.
There's
They seem like they're very integrated.
Yeah, there was that Tom Cruise movie.
Mm.
Do you remember what I'm talking about from a long time ago?
It's called the one where they predict the crime that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very famous movie.
Yeah, I can't remember what the name of it is.
It'll come to me. It's on the tip of my tongue right now.
Yeah, if you guys remember, drop it in the comments. But yes, Palantir is a very interesting company. I think that one might deserve its own, episode in and of itself, just because
the characters that are involved in what they do.
Yeah, and like I don't know how they continue to go under the radar. Maybe it's just the nature of the.
Some of that's Alex Karp too.
Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But yeah.
And it's like, but maybe it's just like not in the public interest, but the impact, the public impact of what they do is very, very worth noting. Yeah.
Yeah, because the other thing is that a lot of people will see the value of this company skyrocketing, but not a lot of tangible outputs, because we're not in the government sector. We don't see these things. And so there is a little bit of a disconnect, I believe.
It's like a private, well, now it's public.
Right.
But it's like a public NSA almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but going into some of the
0 to 1
founder takeaways. So a big thing that he talked about is the challenge of the future. And the challenge of the future being that it's a lot of times people only look at the future as a time that's not today. But the big takeaway from reading that area of the book was that the future is a fundamentally different reality than it is today. And what we do today impacts that future. And so if we can be really cognizant about how we're doing things, i.e. technology, then we can have a significant impact on the future. And that's a really important thing to take into consideration when we're thinking about what it means to be a founder, entrepreneur in the technology space.
Yep. And we've gone through some of these ideals as we've talked about it. The one that I know that stuck out to me was the whole like competitions for losers.
Yeah, the big thing that he talks about is the ideology of competition. And the way that he views competition is that competition shouldn't be the goal. Yeah, he says it shouldn't be the goal of an entrepreneur, and you should avoid it, and you should be trying to create a monopoly.
Right.
And yeah, it's like for losers in that respect, because ultimately it's like an infighting when you have if you have a diverse enough perspective and you have the right information and you study, you should be able to find something on your own island, in your own blue ocean, where you don't have to go and fight over scraps, but you can create something, get really, really good at it, and be the best and deliver that in a market.
And then if you do expand from that stronghold, instead of trying to say, oh yeah, I'm just a generalist in all these areas.
Yeah, and having like a flat line over like all of your output. And so that is a big thing. And I think it's not something that people like to hear, and I think that is probably a contrarian view in the sense that he's saying monopolies are a good thing.
Well, I see, for me, it's contrarian to maybe the capitalistic view, but if you own the monopoly, who's going to tell me that a monopoly is bad? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's advocating to own the monopoly. And so I think if he was in a situation where somebody else owned a monopoly, he'd say, yeah, that's bad, because I don't own it.
But it's, if the person with a monopoly is acting is not acting for the public good. So a monopoly that is offering something that the public can benefit from, and they're the best in class and they're delivering the best experience possible, then he's saying a monopoly is good. One thing that I don't really hear him talk about or stress enough is how monopolies tend to like ultimate, they say power corrupts,
right?
And ultimate power corrupts, or absolute power corrupts absolutely,
right?
I think the reason why people are against monopolies is where it can go. He also has this reputation of being very authoritarian in nature. It might be the German in him. um, but I think that's where he's almost thinking of. It's like the ideal of a monopoly can contribute. It's like the benevolent dictator.
Again, like, as long as you're on my side, I won't have a problem with it. That's my read on the case. Is like, as soon as you start not being for my ideals or what I think you should be doing, then it's bad. Where it's like, okay, like, everyone's gonna have that at some point.
Yeah, I look at it as
because you're never gonna be all benevolent. There's no company that's always benevolent or all benevolent.
Yeah.
So it's always gonna be something that someone disagrees with, and it's just about who disagrees and where.
But I believe that he would look at an outside monopoly and say, as long as that monopoly is doing a good thing, then it's a net good. Like, he looks at Google and he's like, and he says, see, Google pretty much has a monopoly on search, and when they had their monopoly on search, it was a good thing. They had like 76% of the market at the time of writing 0
That's
1.
interesting.
And he said that they completely dominated the space, and it was a good thing because Google provided a net good that was just better than all the other platforms. And it was largely due to their insights and how they positioned themselves, et cetera, et cetera. When Microsoft was first delivering in the 90s, I think that they were doing a net good. But then I think it becomes a problem. Monopolies become a problem when they lower the overall good that they're delivering. So it's maybe not I'm the only person that can have a monopoly and you can't. It's, if you have a monopoly, you have to be delivering value that is congruent with what you're delivering, with how much of the market you own. And if you don't, then that's a problem. But my thing is that that's so rare for that to happen over an extended amount of time.
Yeah.
Because of the nature of people.
I like that idea. I also think there is a level of subjectivity to it.
Okay.
Where it's you're giving the world enough value for the amount of market share that you have in my head. Like, in my head, you're doing it at a good ratio. But maybe in somebody else's head, you're not. And so I think there is a level of subjectivity there where it's like, as long as you have a good standing in my eyes, I'm going to be okay with the monopoly, regardless of the true objective of what's actually happening. As soon as you start saying, oh, Google is doing all this good for the world, but then they're funneling money to, I don't know, anywhere else that you don't agree with.
Yeah.
Maybe then it's like, okay, the monopoly's breaking. I'm curious where the subjectivity is.
I think the whole thing is subjective. I think the whole
in terms of good and bad monopolies.
Right. But I think, like, well, I guess the good and bad. Well, I think the whole dynamic of, like, how you evaluate this stuff is subjective when it comes down to it. And I think that it plays out like that in the way that we're looking at things. Because even if Peter Thiel says, hey, this company is contributing an overall net positive, then other people think the opposite. And if those other people that think the opposite are in positions of power where they can go and regulate the monopoly or break them up, then that's going to happen regardless.
Right.
But an example might be Google, and he actually talks about this as well too, where Google had a monopoly in search, but they positioned themselves as a general software company.
Right.
And if you look at them as a general consumer software company, then they have 2% of the market.
Right.
But if you look at them as the search engine, then they had 70+ % of the market.
Right.
Now we're in an AI space and we're seeing that break up even more. And so I think maybe to his effect, if you ruled Google an antitrust, or you brought antitrust lawsuits against Google,
that's the way you look at it.
Yeah. And I think perception is very, very malleable.
Yes.
And I think he knows that as well too.
Yeah.
But when you look at Google and you look at their search engine market share, and if you had broken them up based off of that, then you wouldn't allow for natural forces in competition to break up the monopoly through technical advancement, which I think is what he talks about. And so you have the introduction of artificial intelligence that comes up. Google, because they get so big, they can't invest in the AI like they probably should have at the correct time. So they end up publishing this paper, and it ends up getting picked up by OpenAI, and that ends up creating ChatGPT.
Right.
And so with that becoming
Competition is then pushing that bar up.
Exactly, as opposed to having regulators come in there and say, this shouldn't be here, this shouldn't be there. So I don't know. I think it is a fine line. I think there's a lot of subjectivity in the whole debate over whether something's a monopoly, what should they be doing, what shouldn't they be doing. But again, if they're offering a net positive where people are engaging and people are liking the product, then I think pumping the brakes on monopoly is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they're controlling their own market and boxing other people out, then that's a different.
Yeah, very fine line.
Yeah.
What are some other? I have one other lesson from that 0 to 1 book.
Yeah, let's.
There's a lot of other ones.
Yeah, there's last mover advantage. That was another one. He talked about how the first mover advantage is a tactic. It's not a strategy. And
it's a tactic, not a strategy. What do you mean by that? What does he mean by that?
Yeah, he said, study the end game, and then he also said study the end game before anything else. And that's obviously a lesson from chess. But he talks about how ultimately the value of a business is the cash payments that it can pay out over its lifetime.
Okay.
And being the first mover doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have large revenues and cash flows down the line. So making sure that you set your company up to have large revenues and cash flows down the line is extremely important. And a lot of that ties to his idea of durability in a company and how important that is. Because in software, in startups, a lot of the revenue and a lot of the payments that a company is expected to receive don't happen at the start.
Right.
The curve is more like this, and then it goes up.
Right.
But different businesses have different shapes. Some have like a more shape like that, and some are more linear. But with software, it's very different, where there's a huge investment early on in terms of getting growth, in terms of getting people, and then because the software can add another person without adding on a large cost, it becomes just very marginal to add another user on while they still end up paying revenue. That's why the exponential growth happens. And so he talks about that. He used PayPal as an example.
Yes.
In talking about how when we first started out, there was a lot of money spent in terms of developing the platform, getting the base together. But when we started getting our revenues, it ended up taking off, and it really paid back. And then that's when eBay bought it. They got a huge value add because it allowed them to be 10x, 100x better than their competitors. And then even now, the large value of that PayPal, that payments processor, is still seeing returns that you couldn't necessarily predict in the early stages if you were evaluating it like a different type of business.
Yeah, to me, it's interesting because if you know what the end game can consist of, like chess, yes, study that. But if you don't know what the end game could or possibly consist of, it's that mentality of go as far as you can see.
Yeah.
And then we'll reevaluate.
Yeah. And to his effect, he said that when he was writing the book, he was like, I didn't know that it was going to be even this big of an effect.
Right.
But like now that I can kind of see over the horizon, it's clear. And then that feeds into other businesses. What's interesting is they all started these businesses around the same time: LinkedIn, SpaceX, Tesla.
After that
Palantir,
eBay merger.
And they all really invested in the future, and seeing all of that pay out it's incredible.
Yeah. Maybe do one more?
Yeah, one more. What's the one that you were talking about?
I was interested in his take on globalization and how sorry, we have I get it. There's a funeral happening here, and so people are just flying through this red light. So I was about to go through, but I can't. Anyway.
Like what?
This idea of globalization, how going from 0 to 1 is different than going from 1 to n. In terms of, where do I go? In terms of in the frame of globalization, the West going through an industrial revolution and going from nothing, right, from farming and agriculture to industry is a net from 0 to 1. It's something brand new. Let's say like China copying the West in terms of its advancements, going from agricultural to technology, which is what they have here. They're just copying the West. They're not actually making any progress as what he would say. They're not making any progress. They're just copying.
Yeah.
And so there's not as much value there because you're not actually going from 0 to 1. You're not like inventing anything. You're not making anything new. It's just copying. But the other part of my brain is like, I like copying what I like. So I think there can be a mix of those where you need to have some net new things, but you can also continue to use what has worked for other people as long as it continues to work, right? Just because somebody else went through that path doesn't mean you can't also go through that path.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean that's a really interesting point. I want to highlight again how technology is the study of techniques, and techniques are how we do things. When somebody's technical, they're very familiar with how things are being done. And I think when we look at technology right now, we associate the field of technology with a caricature. But when you look at it, it's very much about how you're doing things, and that's where technology lies.
Yeah.
We operate in the information space.
Right.
And so we're studying the techniques of how we do things with information, how we manipulate information, how we process information, how we use information to predict different outcomes in the world. That's the space that IT lives in. And technology is across industries. It's in sports, it's in the arts.
Everywhere.
That's a big thing. Leonardo da Vinci was a big technologist. He was very obsessed with how he's painting, how he's sculpting, how he's creating different inventions. But again, we are in the business of techniques, and a technology is a study of techniques, just like biology is the study of human life, just like psychology is a study of the human mind. Technology is the study of techniques, and I think looking at it through that lens adds a lot more clarity to the 0 to 1. If you're just trying to optimize my techniques, then that's a fundamentally different game than trying to develop new techniques that have tangible use.
Right. And I think there is a lot more value in developing them from brand new, but there also can be a lot of value in just using proven techniques.
Correct.
And you shouldn't be ashamed, or you shouldn't be adverse to doing that, especially when other people have seen very large amounts of success doing that.
Yeah, 100%. You want to jump into this?
I think we should. Yeah,
let's continue it over there.
You guys can find that episode in the comment section or the description below.
Yes.
Where we're going to be on constants.com, and we're going to be going through a couple more of these 0 to 1 mentalities for running your business better, and looking at Peter Thiel.
Yeah.
Cool. We'll see you there. Peace.